Well, welcome to another edition of the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show. I'm Joe Folletti, here to inspire your marriage to be sizzling hot. I'm so happy to be here today with you today on this beautiful Monday morning. And I'm also excited to have my co-host, Dr. Saitik Davis, and also I have Dr. Susan Campbell. Hello, everyone. How are you guys doing?
Great, Joe.
Hopefully, I
I'm
can hear
doing well.
everybody
Thank you
okay.
so much.
Do I see everybody? Can I hear everybody? Dr. Davis, can I hear you?
Yeah, can I hear it? Can
Oh,
you hear
yeah.
me?
Can you hear me?
I can.
All
Loud.
right. We're all on air. Wonderful. Great. Everything's working fine. Dr. Campbell, so good to see you again.
Good to see you, Joe.
I'm going to make you a regular guest.
I feel like that.
Yes, absolutely. We're so happy to have you, blessed to have you joining us and talking to us today as we're talking about building and maintaining intimacy in marriage. You are a marriage guru. You've written all kind of books on relationships, and really excited about the stuff you have to offer, and I'm excited to share you with our audience. So thanks again, Dr. Campbell, for joining us again for another show.
Thank you for inviting me, Joe. It's always good to talk to you.
Great, great, great. Well, let's get started. First of all, tell us a little bit about you and where you're located and what you're doing and what's going on in your practice. What's your newest book out? Give us some updates on Dr. Campbell.
Okay, well, I've been a relationship coach for 55 years, believe it or not. I started in 1967. That's when I got my PhD at UMass. And then I taught there. I taught at UMass for 10 years, training other therapists. And now I live in California, just north of San Francisco. And I still have a very full practice, relationship coaching, a lot of couples work, some individual work. And I do workshops. And if you want to see my events, you go to susancampbell.com, and I'm offering some free events as well as a couple of Zoom-based workshops and even an in-person workshop. This May, I have an in-person workshop coming up in California.
Okay.
My brand is Getting Real. So I teach people how to be both intimate and authentic. Sometimes when you tell the truth to somebody, it kind of hurts their feelings or pushes their buttons, but I teach people how to be honest in a safe and loving way.
Okay. All right. Getting real, huh?
Yeah, that's the brand. And my latest book is 5-Minute Relationship Repair. That just came out in August, and it now is out in an audiobook form too. So those of you who like to listen. So it's called From Triggered to Tranquil: How Self-Compassion and Mindful Presence Can Transform Relationship Conflicts and Heal Childhood Wounds. And it looks something like this.
Awesome, awesome. I'm excited to say that I picked up my own copy.
And it's my best book yet.
Okay, so why is it your best book yet?
Well, I've discovered, Joe, that the cause of most relationship problems is really people avoiding the normal emotional pains of an adult. The normal emotional pains are things like getting your feelings hurt when your partner doesn't want to do the same thing as you or wants to go somewhere with their friends and you're left alone, or vice versa. You're feeling like you want less interaction at a particular time. You want some alone time, and your partner's crowding you, and you feel controlled, and those kinds of things. Normal things that have to do with how much time we want to actually spend in each other's presence face to face versus maybe just side by side doing things together. So I teach people here in this book what to do when you get triggered by these kinds of things in a relationship. And getting triggered means you misinterpret. They're pretty much based on a misinterpretation of your partner's actions. Your partner's just being them, but you might get hurt, and it's normal to get hurt. And sometimes when we see ourselves getting upset, and especially if we start to shut down or start to yell and blow up, we don't like ourselves too much. We don't like ourselves when we're in this triggered state. But I teach couples how to notice the early warning signs when you're getting triggered, call for a pause, do some self-compassion work, and get back to being close afterwards, after you've calmed everybody's nervous systems, and do what we call a repair, and do a very efficient repair. So in a short amount of time, you can go from triggered to tranquil. You can go from, oh, my partner doesn't like me, or they're over controlling me, or I'm not enough for them, or some fear story like that. That's not true. It's based on childhood wounds, but you can go from that mindset to, oh, that reaction I had, or that reaction they had, was really their vulnerable child self asking to be held in a way that maybe they weren't held when they were little people. So this is all about reparenting that inner child.
Okay. So it is true that as adults, we often find ourselves acting like children.
Yes, we do. And sometimes we get mad at ourselves and we criticize ourselves for that. And okay, you might be a little ashamed of it, but these trigger reactions where we act like children are really a doorway to feelings that probably got shut down when you were little. Let's say you got a lot of criticism when you were a little kid. It was kind of intense for your nervous system to feel, gosh, I'm not loved by mommy, that type of thing. So you wouldn't feel that. You would suppress that. And so parts of ourselves, our natural humanness, kind of got shut down and got frozen. And then it gets unfrozen when we get into an adult relationship. We get into conflict, and these same types of feelings, whoa, I'm feeling something like I felt when I was 5 years old. Well, you know what? Maybe you ought to go back and visit that 5-year-old and feel a little bit with that, feel empathy with that 5-year-old, bring comfort to that 5-year-old, and let that frozen energy of hurt feelings, because let's say maybe mommy criticized me a lot, let those hurt feelings be held by your own nurturing inner parent.
That's good. It's amazing how both 5-year-olds can be in operation at the same time in a household. So many couples find themselves so wrapped up in their emotions that they actually become violent with each other, and even if they're not hitting, they say some very mean things. Boy, getting those 5-year-olds under control, whew, that's a lot sometimes, isn't it?
It is. That's why couples have to have a prior agreement that at the first sign of these trigger reactions, we will pause and do some slow conscious breathing, take a walk, take some kind of a break to calm our nervous systems, and do not try to have a conversation or solve a problem when there's triggering in the space between you. If you're blaming your partner, if you're even if it's not super violent, but if you're in a blaming mindset, or why didn't you do it this way, that way that would have made me feel more comfortable, that kind of mindset, you can't really solve a problem together and connect again until you've gotten below that blaming mindset down to, oh, well, I'm doing that blaming thing because that's my defense mechanism against feeling just plain hurt.
Right.
And feeling hurt is a normal human thing.
So that chasing your spouse around the house is not a good idea, huh?
Not a good idea. No, we don't recommend that. It just digs your hole deeper. And
You're going to talk to me. You're not going to run from me.
yeah, that does happen, Joe. And couples have to get the idea that it is useful to be more self-aware and to be more in control of the safety of your nervous system. And that I'm pointing to my head because your nervous system is mainly in the brain. And it's the amygdala part of the brain that just goes off like a survival alarm, like a siren saying, danger, danger. We all have this part of the human brain called the amygdala, and the brain scientists have a little name for it too, the survival alarm system, just to help us realize that we've all got this in our brain. It's not like you're being intentionally mean to your partner or intentionally difficult. Once that survival alarm system thing goes off, your brain interprets that as a survival issue, when what it really is a sign that you feel somehow disconnected from your loved one or unsafe. And you just need to calm yourself down. And then later, when you both calm, reach out for connection, reach out for some kind of safety or reassurance. So we all need to swallow our pride, admit that we got feelings hurt, and that we need some reassurance, feeling that we are loved or that we are important to our partner.
Absolutely. I think it's so interesting, you know, even the title of the book, from a state of trauma to a state of just tranquility, because a lot of times we don't realize like that classical conditioning that happens where, you know, we associate something bad and then we attach it to the marriage or we attach it to a situation. And now that other thing that wasn't bad is also now bad. And, you know, I think back to what you were saying about just being a child and when you were reared and how things happen. And a lot of people don't take the time to associate, to nurture that 5-year-old child that's within them, to recognize and realize that a lot of the things that happen to you, I don't know why the computer's ringing. A lot of the things that happen to you during that time is why you love, or you are able to receive love in your present day. But it's work. It's work that a lot of people just aren't willing to do, because can you imagine being 43 years old and being controlled by a 5-year-old? Because internally, that's what's going on. You are being controlled by a child who became a radical in a sense, and that radical is inside of you, you know, determining every aspect of your life. So I just thought, I made a note of it. I thought it was extremely interesting, but more so like factual, that, you know, I was just talking to a couple and I'd asked them, I said, well, you know, what are your triggers and your trauma? And they said, we don't have any. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, don't ask that question. Ask what upsets you. What does your partner do that you wish you could change?
And that's exactly where the conversation went next.
Language that we use, you know?
Yeah.
And then, you know, well, or in the session, you see one partner kind of saying, well, it didn't happen like that. No, Doc, it wasn't like that. And then you might go, well, how did that feel when your partner just corrected you in front of me?
And that's exactly the direction.
That's you being triggered.
And that's exactly the direction.
Right. And then what does it feel like when your partner just talks over you like that? Oh, gee, I start to feel small. Let's feel into that a little more. Oh, I feel like I'm a 5-year-old. Well, let's go back and remember what it was like when you were 5. Did anything similar to what your partner just did? Did anything similar to that happen when you were little? And a lot of people will remember things. Some people won't. It's not necessary to have memories, but a lot of us will remember unfortunate things that maybe the parent just was trying to be a good parent, because parents don't know everything. They don't really remember what it's like to be in the body of a 5-year-old. And it's good for us to get back in touch with the 5-year-old within, especially if we are parents, right? So we can have a little more empathy for how scary it is when you're 5 and the whole world is all big people telling you either can't do something or you're not doing it right. And we all were that 5-year-old.
That's
once.
right.
So we all have this reparenting job to do with ourselves. I think almost every human needs some reparenting, and they may not admit that they get triggered or that they have trauma back there. But nowadays, the word trauma has a lot of different meanings. It just doesn't just mean you were beaten or you were in a bad car accident.
Yeah.
There's a term called developmental trauma, and developmental trauma simply means that some of your core childhood needs were not met when they were supposed to be met, like the need for safety, love, appreciation, and the need for somebody to run to when you're afraid, and they'll show you how to calm your nervous system down. See, a lot of our parents don't know how to hold us long enough for the scared child to go, oh, okay, mommy, I'm good now, or daddy, I can go back and play now. Sometimes parents will maybe be a little bit sympathetic, but they won't stay with the child long enough for real calming to happen. So we've got to be patient with that little 5-year-old, because a 5-year-old might need a little more than 1 minute of
so the 45-year-old as well. So
yes.
So would you say that this 5-year-old, this out of control 5-year-old still running things, is why people end up getting divorced?
Yeah, they don't know how to befriend.
Because even affairs, I mean, that's that 5-year-old, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. It's the fact that you haven't come to terms with the emotional pain that is inside of you, that's buried, that's frozen from the past. And intimate relationships are the best place for unearthing those old feelings that have been frozen, and they get unfrozen. Sometimes, as you said, Joe, they get very hot, in an adult relationship, like yelling and name calling and stuff like that. But I want to remind our viewers, our listeners too, that trigger reactions are not just getting hot and yelling and slamming doors. A lot of us, probably more of us, shut down and just withdraw, and we make up a story that,
stonewalling,
that person doesn't like me. Well, it's not intentional stonewalling. See, stonewalling is something people do as a defense mechanism, but for most of us, our nervous system just didn't feel safe, and it just starts to interpret the partner's behavior as unfriendly, like, oh, they don't like me as much as I like them. This relationship's not as important to them. Maybe I better start backing away. And it's all kind of innocent, because they're making up a meaning of their partner's behavior that isn't what the partner is meaning to communicate. Let's say the partner wants to go out without you on a particular weekend night, and you're used to going out together, not separate on a Saturday night. It's date night. But your partner says they want to go out with some friends, an old buddies in town, whatever. And you take that maybe as, well, he's losing interest in me. I'm not so important. So we make up meaning. And if we see that our mind is making up a kind of negative meaning, we can check it out. We can say, I'm starting to think, maybe I'm not as important to you as I thought I was. And your partner can hopefully reassure you, but sometimes that'll trigger them, and they'll say, what are you talking about? You're so insecure. So that's, both people need to read this book and understand that when I start saying, what are you talking about? You're so insecure. That means I'm triggered. And if everybody gets curious about their own trigger reactions, you have so much more self-control and mastery over yourself because you're not always at the mercy of every little thought that comes through your mind.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like me, she's controlling me. Those thoughts are generally not true,
Right.
just based on the fact that some of your childhood needs were not completely met, and
Isn't
they need to be addressed
it's
now.
interesting that those thoughts really turn you into the victim. That's what it sounds like. You,
Some of them turn you into a victim, some of them turn you into an aggressor,
huh?
but either way, it's not a good thing.
Okay.
It's not reality. I mean, you being a victim or you being an aggressor, that is not your true self. That's your triggered self. See, we need to make a distinction. When we're triggered, when we're under the influence of those chemicals that get activated when the survival alarm system goes off, something just happened between me and my partner, danger, danger. When you're under the influence of those chemicals, it's like you're drunk. You really you shouldn't make too many big decisions, and you shouldn't trust your mind then. You need to know when you're triggered and value knowing that, rather than, oh, we don't get triggered.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case.
That's not the case. Not the case. It's interesting when you said that is your triggered self. I immediately thought about my kids. Everybody else says, "Oh, they're so wonderful, such sweet children." I'm like, you need to come up in my house. My kids are really sweet.
When they're
over the course of time,
right?
that's right. You see their triggered self at home. So
Yeah.
I guess the same way with your spouse or your partner. They can be as sweet to everybody else, but then the monster at home.
Yeah, and if, let's say your kids show the little monster part or your spouse shows the little monster part, if we're educated about triggers, we can actually learn to see past the monster part and kind of do not hold your 5-year-old as, boy, they're your little monster. Don't hold them in your mind as that's them. It's like,
that's powerful.
let's calm down together so we can get back to the real you.
Man, that's hard because they done triggered you. So
That's right.
how do you now stay calm?
Exactly. There's a whole chapter for parents in this new book. I'm triggered with my children, and we got to admit as parents that we do get triggered by our own children. We have to learn how to work with those. And
yeah,
so it's the same as working with when you're triggered by your spouse, working with yourself when you're triggered by your child. It's the same. Pause, self-calm, activate the compassion for your own inner child that just got frustrated because your kid's not listening to you, and so forth. So these tools can be used in any relationship.
This is good stuff, Dr. Campbell. Great stuff. It's interesting. You're kind of externalizing the trigger. You're separating the trigger from, you're separating it off so that it's not all.
You're stepping back. You're right. Yeah, you're stepping back from the trigger, the triggered self. So that in a way, when you learn to do this work, you're learning to develop the witness consciousness or the observer part of your mind that can actually see yourself doing things that maybe you'd rather not be doing, and can intervene, just like a good parent intervenes with two kids who are fighting,
That's beautiful, to be able to intervene when your spouse is triggered. That's a beautiful thing. So when it comes to building intimacy, what I hear you saying is that when your spouse is triggered, or when you're triggered, is a great opportunity for intimacy.
Yeah, because your vulnerable self just got activated. The vulnerable self that sometimes does feel a little more needy than you'd like to feel, like I need some reassurance that I'm really important to you. I mean, if we spoke the truth to our partner, it might sound something like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
what's underneath your trigger reaction, which is your story that I'm not important to you.
Mm-hmm.
If you just jump to a conclusion, what if you felt the insecurity and revealed that rather than acting from that,
Mm-hmm.
and were available for your partner to reassure you?
Mm-hmm.
I think probably we're all a little more insecure at times than we'd
Mm-hmm.
like to admit. But if we admit
Yeah.
it, then we can get reassurance and then we can get back to feeling secure together.
I think that's where those uh, Dr. Davis, those hugs that Dr. Gray was talking about, how important those hugs are
Absolutely.
to really making you feel loved and nurtured.
Yeah. A lot of times after a trigger, you don't have to say much. You might just say, I got triggered there and I know I was off. I need a hug.
Hmm.
Not everybody wants a hug too
Yeah,
soon after
don't touch
trigger.
me.
But certainly it's good to ask for a
Yeah,
hug, to say, do you need a hug?
yeah.
I'd like to hug you right now. That can be such a simple way of calming a stressed nervous system.
So stress, nervous system. Let's let's talk about that. So if you grow up and you have traumatic experiences from, you know, um, parents divorcing, being bullied in school, or even like you said, developmental trauma. You're extremely short, or whatever than everybody else, or whatever the situation is. Um, you you grow up with this, um, chip on your shoulder, right?
Mhm.
How do you how do you get? I mean, how do you? You're a psychologist, and you've been doing this for years. Written all these books. You help people get that chip off their shoulders.
This is what that work is about. The chip on the shoulder is just a defense mechanism to protect from the emotional pain that's down there waiting to be felt with compassion. It's not like you're just supposed to feel pain. You need to, if you're going to bring up some old pain, like a memory. When I say bring up old pain, you might have a memory of being criticized or yelled at or left, abandoned. So you bring up that pain with your compassionate witness self activated, so you really can make a safe place for emotions. Because the chip on the shoulder is like, it's not safe to be emotional, it's not safe to be soft and vulnerable, but there's something underneath that, which is the desire for connection, the desire to be loved and important and that sort of thing. So um, if your partner, let's say, seems to have a chip on their shoulder, try to see past that behavior and realize that there's a hurting person inside there who needs some
Hmm.
reassurance that they're loved, that they're important.
Yeah, I see couples, fighting for that need for compassion, fighting for, uh, you know, succor, fighting each
Yeah,
other. I can't give it to you because I need you to give it to me.
that's right.
How do you help couples to end that fight and take turns actually?
Yeah, yeah. So let's say the couple is both saying, well, you go first, you go first. I'm not going to bare my soul until you open up to me, that type of thing. Um, we have to just see, okay, this is where we're stuck right now.
Hmm.
We each feel not safe enough to reach out to the other person, really, or to give much to the other person. We're both just feeling unsafe. So we have to first explore, what's that lack of safety about in me? What
Mm.
am I projecting onto my partner? Like I'm, projecting my withholding parent or my critical parent on there. And the word projection means, it's a psychological term, but it's really a good one to be aware of, is that what I'm un, unable to do inside of myself, I expect you to do for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm unable to make myself feel safe. So I project you should make me feel safe. There's a lot of different examples of projection, but this is one common one when you've got that stalemate. And what I need to do is take back that projection, feel how it feels to want somebody else to make me feel safe. And just, I start with that feeling, and then memories start to come from times in the past. Maybe it's teenage, maybe it's when I was 12 or 13 or 4 or 5, but different memories might come up of when I did not feel safe. And that's again an opportunity for me to activate my self-compassion, my witness, so that I can build some internal safety in order to come back to my partner and realize, okay, now I'm ready to make the first move, give the olive branch to you, give you a little bit of reassurance, and then ask for the need that I have, which is, well, I need to feel loved, I need to feel heard or respected too.
Mm-hmm. So it's just something that has to be negotiated.
You realize where you both are. So, in a intimate relationship, there's a lot of negotiation that goes on, but it isn't like verbal negotiation necessarily. I'll give you this if you'll give me that. It's not always verbal like that, but there's always if I offer a little more safety to my partner, then does my partner offer a little more safety to me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dance, and it's a kind of a negotiation that's going on when there's lack of safety in a relationship. Both people are kind of watching, and I'm only going to give a little bit. So yes, it's like a negotiation, but it's not necessarily verbal until the very end. And then once you've gotten through your own lack of safety and you've brought some compassion to that tender part of yourself, then you're ready to talk about it and say, I really could use some reassurance. And then it becomes a verbal exchange. That's called the repair. And I give people in the book, there's a whole chapter on how to make up after a fight and not to get back into the fight. See, most people, when they make up after a fight, they repeat the stuff that happened in the fight, but maybe with cooler voice tones. They're a little calmer, but they're still arguing. They're still trying to be right. So I teach couples how to do an efficient, sincere repair using the minimum of words. I actually give them a script. When this happened, I was triggered. I didn't mean it. It was probably my old fear of not being good enough, summing up, confessing what the core fear was. And what I really need is I need your help to feel that I am good enough. So I need some reassurance from you. So that a repair is about that short.
That's good. That's good. Well, Dr. Campbell, our time, I tell you, it just goes by so fast, doesn't it? Just really appreciated you sharing so many good thoughts. We have so much to talk about, don't we, Dr. Davis? Here's Dr. Campbell's book, From Triggered to Tranquil. Susan Campbell, PhD. You've got to get a copy of Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I guess it's everywhere, huh, Doctor?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again for joining us. And we look forward to having you back again in the near future. Before we go, though, share your quick tip, your quick challenge to increase intimacy in a couple's marriage. Give me one quick idea for couples to take away from today.
Well, the tip I can give is learn to admit when you are upset. That will help you the most, because that will open up your heart and make you available to receive love.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Well, thank you again, Dr. Campbell. Appreciate your time. May God bless you, okay, in your practice, and you could keep on going. Maybe the Lord will give you another 50 years. Come on now.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Take care now. Well, that was Dr. Susan Campbell. Man, that's
Awesome,
awesome.
awesome, awesome.
Wonderful time with her. Every time she comes on, I just am just thrilled to be able to, to be able to enjoy her wisdom and all that she has all these years. And some people just have gifts. They're just I don't know, just special people who have been gifted with special knowledge and have blessed the world. And so we're thankful for people like that, and people like Dr. John Gray and all these other folks. Just a blessing to have them. Hopefully we're going to continue to have more and more of these people on the show so people can get a taste of what God has blessed us with,
Amen.
She said a lot.
Did.
One of the things that came to my mind was you haven't come to terms with those unresolved emotions from childhood.
And even beyond coming to terms with them, like, some people have suppressed so much of their childhood that they just believe that it didn't happen. And developmental trauma is more than just you being cursed out. Developmental trauma is also no one ever correcting you, telling you the way you were acting wrong.
No discipline.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, she definitely spoke to some things to help people start to realize and recognize that the way you were reared doesn't necessarily, it's not okay. And as a result of it, the way that you love, the way that you don't love, the way that you are incapable of love, it speaks to that pain. So, yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Very educational.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So it's like we really have to figure out how to resolve those. She talked about being aware of yourself. And I think that it's difficult to be aware of yourself because I guess, we're so in tune to others. We're not really paying attention to ourselves. What do you think?
I agree. Because self-awareness requires great conviction. Self-awareness requires great conviction. A lot of times, a lot of people just aren't willing to convict themselves.
To convict themselves? What do you mean?
Like, I can know that I'm treating you wrong, right? But because I'm just in a place in my life where, I don't care. I don't care how you feel. I won't be convicted in my heart that what I'm doing is wrong. So for me, it's kind of like when I fast, you know what I mean? Sometimes I could fast and then I'll get on social media and then I'll say, dog, I wasn't supposed to be on social media. I started to feel bad, but earlier on in my life when I was, trying to learn fasting and stuff like that, I would do it and I would just be like, oh, shoot, I forgot. Wasn't supposed to be on Facebook. So it's that same sense of conviction that people have to have within themselves to know that, you know what, I know I'm not able to have conversations with my spouse about certain things because I'm not in a place yet where I can have a conscious conversation. I'm not in a place yet where I can talk about finances with my husband because deep down inside, I don't really know much about it. I've never managed my finances too tough. So when we have this conversation, I naturally always get upset. And why is that? A, I can't have a conscious conversation about something that I'm struggling with. And B, there's just no self-conviction.
And that comes from parenting then, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
So, man, what do you do when you got a spouse who really wasn't parented well,
Yeah.
What do you do?
You know, and that's why it's imperative. Going back to Anna, was it Anna Laura? Did I say her name wrong? Anna Laura.
Oh, Ava Laura.
Ava Laura.
Yeah.
That's why it's imperative. Going back to Ava Laura's, contributions to the show, you get to know that person. It is imperative that you get to know that person, and you get to know that they weren't raised right, or you get to know that, in their household, the father worked all day, came home, cooked dinner, got the kids ready for bed, and the mom did nothing all day. You need to know that, because in that person's mind, that's what they notice. That's their lived experiences in terms of functionalities in a home. And so you need to get to know a person so you can understand that about them, and you can kind of help them process that. We look at people right now, wonder why. Like I read something yesterday. It says a pretty face is cool, but you need somebody with a good head and a good heart to raise your kids.
Yeah.
Difference.
Yeah. But once you got them, it's done, right? I like what Dr. Campbell said, that you really have to have the conversation, right? About our plan. How do we plan to deal with each other when we're triggered? Are we going to take a time out? We're going to take turns. Okay. Am I going to nurture you, and then you nurture me? Think about it for real. What a difference that would make in your relationship. I'm thinking about it in my own marriage. Like, wow, that's a cool negotiation right there, where we both acknowledge that there are times when that 5-year-old is triggered, and being able to call it out and to say, okay, I recognize that's not you talking to me, that's that 5-year-old, right? I'm trying to keep my 45-year-old and not letting that 5-year-old come out now that you've been triggered. But being able to have that conversation about being aware of your emotions, and also creating a safe space, you talked about, to be able to talk about your emotions. Man, that's powerful, isn't it?
Yeah, a lot of people shut down, man. A lot of people, speaking for self, just a little bit of self-disclosure. I know who I can have certain conversations with. And I'll be honest with you, if there's not a patient-provided confidentiality, a lot of times I just don't divulge the deets. Because once again, there's not that safe space mentality in my mind where I know that I can tell you this about me, and you would be able to recognize that this is that 5-year-old child screaming out, and this is not Satik. And then after this 5-year-old child goes off on this tangent, you're still going to love me the same. And it takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of acceptance. It takes a lot of letting that person feel comfortable. It takes a lot of love and grace to be able to say, you know what? This ain't you. This is that 5-year-old that nobody listened to. This is that 5-year-old little girl who people kept calling bad, people kept being talkative, when in all actuality, you were trying to express yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think that was just so not noteworthy, and especially for men, right? Because a lot of men, depending on what culture you in, to be in tune with your emotions, to talk like that, you were being a sissy. You were being like, stop crying like a girl. You know what I mean? So imagine that conversation with his wife, where now I need you to show me your emotions. I need you to tell me how you feel. I need you to talk to me. But that 5-year-old child inside of him is like, you better not cry. That's why it's important to unpack that trauma.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you be your spouse's therapist?
I didn't hear you, Joe. Say that again.
Can you be your spouse's therapist?
Absolutely not. Oh my gosh, no. Can't be their therapist, their psychologist. You could barely be their spouse.
Your mama and your daddy.
I'm telling you. And I think that's another thing.
So how do you do that? How do you deal with their emotions and not become the therapist, you know?
Well, first, I think it's important to realize that you cannot be the therapist. So even when they try to bait you in that role, you need to know that you can't fulfill it. I mean, even Joe and I, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot be therapists for our own marriages. Joe was my therapist for my marriage, right? You cannot be that. And the reason why you can't is because fixing yourselves from that perspective, from a psychological psychotherapy perspective, is harder than one thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't do it because when you feel a certain way in your heart, that's your truth. And sometimes it takes somebody else to help you identify, to help you see, to help you understand that, you know what, this is what you feel in your head, but in all actuality, like, no.
And that's why it's really important to recognize when it's them and not you. When they're going through something, when they're going through, you know, taunting by that 5-year-old, they're taunting you, but you got to realize it's the 5-year-old taunting them. And boy, being able to recognize when that moment happens and not allowing yourself to be pulled into that, to become the therapist or to become the, you know, that parent, that angry parent who they grew up with or whatever. They try to turn you into that previous relationship, you know, girlfriend who beat them up. You know, you understand what I'm saying? They want to push you, project into you to cause you to do the same behaviors. You have to recognize that, step back, and stay calm, and be able to say, you know, I see that you're really hurting right now, or something, you're really frustrated, or whatever the emotion is you're seeing, and creating that safe space where you don't take it personally, but you're there to nurture them and to be there for them. Not get in there and try to fix it, not diagnose it. You know, you might say maybe you need to talk to your counselor about that, you know, or a therapist about that. But I'm here for you. I love you. And I hope that we can, you know, work through these issues. Beautiful. Well, folks, go ahead.
Oh, but aside from that, like, how creditable will they see your diagnosis? Like, they have a problem with you, and here you are trying to diagnose them. So you lose your effectiveness completely.
You do. And I hate that narcissism word. I really do, because, I mean, it really is a bad word to use, because it just removes the humanity from the person, in my opinion. And I think women can be just as narcissistic as men. So we have to be very careful. And another word for narcissism, it really is selfishness. And of course, that's not the clinical definition of narcissism, but really at the end of the day, when two couples are feuding, both of them become very selfish. And so diagnosing your spouse and all that, it's not helpful. You just need to get the help you need from professionals who can not just diagnose, but help you resolve the issues. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, and recognize that there's a little bit of narcissism in everybody. Take some time today and look at the definition of who a narcissist is and the traits that a narcissist have. I think, yeah, take a look at it. Now, if you're a malignant narcissist, look at it.
All right, Dr. Davis. All right, folks, go to sizzlinghotmarriage.com, and sign up for a free Sizzle evaluation. I also want to encourage you to share with your friends this what we're doing on the Sizzling Hot Marriage show, and like and subscribe to our show. And we also got the Valentine's Day 21-day sizzle that we're doing right now. How's that going, Dr. Davis? How's that going? Y'all still doing it?
We are indeed.
That's wonderful. I asked my wife to do it, but I didn't follow through. I've been so busy. I sure wish I had, because this is some good stuff in there, if I could say so myself. We designed a wonderful program, didn't we?
Yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm. All right, folks. Well, that's going to be another edition of the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show. Any closing words, Dr. Davis? Tip for the day: make happiness happiness. That's it. Today could be your very last day, so don't forget that. So make sure you love everyone in your sphere of influence today like you never loved them before. That's my inspirational thought for the day. All right. God bless on all your marriages, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Who do we have tomorrow, Dr. Davis? I didn't even look and see. I'm getting me some assistance here so I can get myself organized. I don't even see anybody on the schedule tomorrow. I got class tomorrow, so we'll see how we're going to work that out. Anyhow, we're going to work it out by the grace of God. All right, folks, so thanks again for joining us for another edition of the Sizzling Hot Marriage Show. We'll see you guys tomorrow.